Now look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the background. The background has no detail. And I actually painted black over it so that it set back. What did that make it my focal point do? It made this bring it forward.
Mm-hmm.
So you always want to ask yourself, what is my focal point of my drawing and painting? What do I want people to focus on most? Also, look at my color palettes. I have a very limited color palette. According to, I've worked at Disney for years, right? They have a limited color palette for each movie, which means they're not using the whole color of the rainbow for their movies. They're sticking with a very limited palette. Mm-hmm. This is mainly blues and greens, and then I use a complementary color in the corner here. Mm-hmm. Right? The opposite of blue is orange, okay? Or red. Same with this. These are mainly greens and reds. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people use too many colors. You don't have to use too many colors. Mm-hmm. You find out what colors work. Mm-hmm. So these are those things that this is just color theory. Right. But it makes a huge difference in composition. It makes a huge difference in your paintings and drawings, but the schools aren't teaching this. Schools aren't teaching any of the basic foundations. I had abstract expressionist professors, and they didn't teach me anything. They just they just scribbled on a canvas and talked about, these abstract artists, and then they assumed that you were going to get a studio and sell your paintings for $10,000 a piece when you graduated. I graduated and I was dirt poor and realized this is not working. They don't even know who the heck I am. They're not going to buy a painting from me for $10,000. Right. I need to get a job. Mm-hmm. So that's why I got into computer graphics. So these are those things where college sometimes may not teach you what you need to know to actually make a living. Right. But so if you don't know these things, you got to go back to the basics. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm very good at trying to go slow and methodical, repetitive until it becomes a habit. I don't think about it now. I don't think about a lot of this stuff. I make sure my values are good. I step back from my work and I look at it really small and I go, is it still readable? Can someone know what it is? You want someone to look across the room at the painting and go, oh my gosh, look at that. And then they walk up to it. Right. Because they want to see more stuff. Now, what is that?
Car.
Yeah, but how do you know it's a car? I mean, I'm not showing anything complete in the car. I'm not showing. Yeah. But you know what it is, right? Yeah. Why? This is called the gestalt theory. The gestalt theory is about the fact that you've seen thousands of cars in your life. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to show the whole thing because your brain will fill in the rest. So then this creates intrigue, right? This is composition. What did I want my viewer to focus on?
That like rusty.
Yes, I wanted my viewer to focus on the textures. Mm-hmm. So I actually did a weird crop of this on purpose. So it's a rusty truck, but I want the viewer to look at the textures, the painted textures. Mm-hmm. So these are those things that are really important. And there's so many rules, Maya, that I go step by step, because if you go into a painting class and someone puts something in front of you and says, draw this, there's like seven elements of art, and you can't think of all of them at the same time if you're just beginning.
Right.
And so this is why people get discouraged when they go into a class and all of a sudden they're thrown this complex thing to draw. They don't know the first thing to do. So I start out step by step, showing them each element of art slowly but surely until it goes in the long-term memory brain and its habit. And then when I show you a drawing or a reference and say to draw it, you know exactly what to do. And so when I did that with my students, they had never drawn anything. Like they had done exercises, and they're like, when are we going to draw? When are we going to draw something? And I said, just wait. Just wait. You're wait until you've learned these things, and then I will put an apple and a pear in front of you, and you're going to surprise yourself. Okay, so this is the first time they drew apples and pears. And these are 8th graders. And
awesome. Oh my God.
And so some of them are upside down, sorry. But they're incredible.
Yeah.
And they're like, it was like taking a drug to them.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't drawn, they just did my exercises. And then I said, now you're ready. Now you're ready to draw an apple, because you know all the rules now. You know all the rules. Let me flip this. Yeah, so they know light, they know shadow, they know form and shape, they know composition, right? But it took them, you know, it only takes a few months. And that's what I do when I teach is I don't want to overwhelm. I don't know how to dance. And I don't know how many times I've paid expensive dance classes and gone in and everyone's dancing and doing all these moves. And I'm standing there looking like an idiot, and I leave and I never go back. And it's a beginning dance class, because a lot of times beginning drawing classes, beginning dance classes they assume you know all of the dance moves from, you know, a 5-year-old ballet class where you're 5 years old and you're learning ball change and plies. And well, I never took dance classes when I was young, so I don't know the basic steps of anything. And this is the problem with beginning drawing classes is the teacher's done this for 30 years and it's all habit. So they skip to step 30 and all the students are lost because they didn't learn the basics of like, we're going to do step 1. And even if it's repeat for some people, it's still really helpful and everyone benefits. So I wanted to take some time out and tell you that.
You think that would be helpful for me? Like
yeah,
I have taken classes since I was young, and I did do some college classes. So like I feel like I do have the basics, but I also really know that like I don't think it would hurt to learn the basics. But I don't know. What do you in your professional opinion? Do you think?
I don't think it would hurt anyone to learn the basics, because you either learn it now or you learn it 30 years of mistakes from now.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? I can have you practice and get right at it and find out what the right thing is to do, or you're going to find out through trial and error for years. I mean, I always compare it to someone going on the golf course. If they have a bad swing, it doesn't matter how many times they golf, how many years they golf. If there's a bad swing, they're not going to improve their game. With practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, Maya. Practice of the right things makes perfect. Right. And there's a lot of people who are practicing bad habits. I mean, you can see it all the time. Okay, you know, they've been taking drugs for 20 years. How's that practicing making them better? No. You have to learn the right things that work first. And it's better to learn them now than to get in a bad habit and not realize you have this bad habit over and over in your paintings doing the same thing, right? Okay. I know someone who,
this sounds good.
Yeah, I know someone who paints a painting every day, and they have for years, but they're making the same mistakes over and over. I started this a few years ago, and it was a mess. I mean, I still don't like it.
What medium is that? Is that watercolor too?
It's watercolor and gouache.
Okay. Like it looks thicker than watercolor.
Yeah. But there's a lot of problems with it, but there were things that I couldn't figure out because I had never done a painting like that before. And I actually put it away for a while and focused on the problem, focused on solving the problems that I had. And then after I learned them, I went back and finished the painting. I don't just quit and say I can't do it. I just go, I have a weakness here.
What are some examples of, like, in this specific one, things that you had to go back and learn and then fix?
I don't even remember now. This whole rock thing was a mess. And I put like purple here. I started putting people because it's, I mean, look at the detail of the people. It's really, you can't tell, they're smudges. So I learned how to simplify a lot because I was painting every detail and I thought, wait a second, there's some mystery here. Because if you put every detail in the people, then they can't put themselves in there. I think everyone wants to pretend that they're in the painting, right? So if you make it look like someone, then that removes that mystery. But it's like, oh man, that reminds me of going to the beach with my mom and dad, you know? And because your brain fills in so much detail, you don't really need that. The lighting and the shapes have to be correct, right? So I learned that, and I learned to simplify. There's still a lot of things that I would do differently now that I've learned a little bit more. You know, I use gouache for the waves. Atmosphere, whenever things go off into the distance, they become lighter, you know how the mountains are farther away, they get lighter and lighter. So look at how detailed my distance is. It's not, it's just a bunch of dots, because your brain, your eyes can't see the detail anyway when you're looking far into the distance. So why paint it all? It's not natural. Also, it takes away from the focal point of what I want to focus on. Okay. So there are things when it comes to composition that are really important. You can use blurring techniques. You can use darkening things or lightening things, and simplifying, making things really simple to set them back from the focal point. So I hope that's helpful. I know that's not a Photoshop lesson, but I'm hoping these lessons are more learning how to have more successful paintings and drawings.
Yeah, I think another, like, one of the issues that I have that I don't focus so much on that I should is more just like the planning of what I'm going to be drawing or painting. A lot of the times I'll like be in the mood to paint. So I just kind of like search some things on Pinterest, get like a thing, like a reference or and I just kind of like start, as opposed to like planning out, or even on like on photo, like digitally, or with like oil or acrylic or whatever. And I don't like plan like a color palette, and I don't like draw out the composition and whatever, which I think maybe at some point I won't need to, because I'll have the skills so ingrained that it'll just be automatic. But I don't think it's so automatic, and I think I do need to
Yeah.
take a
So
step back and focus, like learn, do those things first before I like.
exactly. So I take so much time planning paintings.
Mhm.
The painting part's probably the easiest part because I'm working things out in my brain,
Mhm.
and I literally get a photo reference, but then I look at the color palette and I do a gradation,
Mhm.
and I plan out the size. What's the size going to be? And so I could take 1 to 2 weeks just to plan it out in my head and plan it out on paper and do mock-ups. And a lot of times when you're doing commissions, people don't understand how much brain work is involved with that, because I'm kind of more like a scientist, where a scientist, will stare at the wall and they're solving problems
Mhm.
just by staring. Because
Mhm.
I don't sit there sketching a bunch of stuff out and seeing what works. I actually work it all out in my head.
Mhm.
And I sleep on it, because sleep kind of helps you solve problems too.
Mhm.
So yeah, the planning. I mean, I've been working on in my head for weeks now a book cover that I need to do for a client.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here going, I'm not sure if that'll work, not sure if that'll work. Um, and then after I've decided, okay, I think I have it, then I'll go look for reference that mimics what's already in my head. Um, but planning has everything to do with it, and working with paper and measuring things out with rulers and all those things. I mean, I was teaching an 8th grade class, and most of them did not know how to use a ruler.
Hmm.
And you're sitting here going, you're too dependent on the computer, because you
Mhm.
need to know how to do this stuff by hand. I mean, what if the grid goes down and you have a deadline?
Yeah.
So you always want to be able to uh, see how you can achieve these things on paper, with paper and pencil, um, and do kind of a mock-up in a sketchbook,
Mhm.
and then bring it into Photoshop or digitally. So any other questions concerning that?